emotional intelligence. We talked about integrity. We talked about a few different things around emotional intelligence, understanding core emotions. All of these different things have all come to this point, this conversation today. And we're actually going to do a bonus week 5 next week as well. So make sure you're tuned in for that. But for today, we have 2 very, very important topics for you guys: listening and awareness. So all of us out there probably have a very, very clear understanding of what awareness is and what listening is. But I'm going to dive into this a little bit today because I have a feeling I'm going to surprise a few of you with some of the things that may qualify as distracted listening. So before we get started, though, I'd love to hear from you guys because I think we can all agree that the biggest grievance, other than obviously sitting and scrolling on your phone, if I was here on my Instagram right now, you guys probably wouldn't appreciate this presentation as much outside of being on your phone, which is probably the biggest distraction for most people today. The other obvious form of distracted listening is the idea of giving a suggestion or giving advice on what to do. How often have we done that? We share something with somebody and really what we want to say is like, oh man, that sucks. That was a really tough day. And they jump up and they're the hero, right? They're going to tell you how to solve your day. And that's so frustrating when you want to talk through it and you feel through your emotions like we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, and somebody just tries to solve the problem for you or give you a solution. And maybe doesn't even ask all the questions to really understand. So that's my question for you guys today. Go ahead and throw down in the comments down below, what is the worst bit of advice that you ever received from somebody? You don't have to put who it's from, but just commenting down below, what is the greatest the greatest piece of advice. That'd be good to know too. But what I want to hear from you guys is the worst piece of advice, because I feel like that's something we can all relate to. At some point in our lives, somebody's given us really terrible advice that we didn't want or didn't need. So go ahead and throw that in the comments down below if something jumps to your mind right away. But let's get started. Summarizing last week, we started off on the new direction of talking about integrity, and we talked about all of the ways that we could best share what our feelings, our emotions are that we're having inside ourselves with others, our friends, family, etc. And so today we're kind of turning the table and we're going to talk about listening, because obviously, as we just shared, the solving the problem is a really clear way of distracted listening. But I've got a few more for you, and I'm going to jump into my handy book again. And just if anybody's wondering, the book that we're reading from here is 15 Commandments of Conscious Leadership. So it's a business leadership book, but it's got some really great stuff. If you've been enjoying the talks for the last couple of weeks, then feel free to check it out. It's super, super helpful. So, okay, in the book, these are called listening filters, but it's the distracted listening, similar idea, right? Things that we do instead of being present and taking our time to pay attention to what the person's sharing with us. So the first one we talked about, right, is solving the problem or diagnosing the problem with your ... and somebody just offers you advice on what to do. So normally it's unsolicited, and generally it's not very helpful because they didn't actually take the time to understand exactly what it is that you're going through. Now, number 2 is correct. And so, for example, let's get in here and say that you submitted a report for your boss and they emailed back and it wasn't the right report, or that you didn't do a good job. They wanted you to change something. And so then somebody could diagnose a problem and say that you need to work harder, right? That you didn't do a good enough job. And that could maybe be your diagnosis. The correction, we are really, no, this isn't a work ethic problem. It's not that you worked hard, it's that the boss didn't appreciate what you did. And so they're kind of twisting it and reframing it in a different way. And this is still kind of just a play on diagnosing or offering advice, right? They're taking what you're saying, and now they're just telling you that not only is there a problem, but you're wrong in your assessment of the problem. So kind of a double whammy. That one's not a whole lot of fun. And I think those 2 are pretty obvious, right? That makes a lot of sense for all of us, that those are distracted forms of listening. But these last 2, I think, are ones that I'm guilty of a lot, and things that maybe, just maybe, you wouldn't expect to be distracted listening, but it's a step out of integrity and a step away from candor, because you're not being completely open with everything that you're feeling. And so first one is avoiding conflict. And so this one, read the example here, is I'm sure that they didn't mean to be upsetting to you. I'm confident you can work it out, right? And so that one's tricky, because I think I've said that 100,000 times, and that's probably my go-to response when somebody does something that's really frustrating to me. Is just say that, they probably didn't intend to do that. And although there's a lot of benefit in flipping things around and trying to look on the bright side and giving people the benefit of the doubt, absolutely you don't want to storm in there and flip tables over and get angry and yell and scream. Still avoiding conflict unless you go and talk to them about the fact that they upset you and share the feelings that you have inside your body and the emotion that you're experiencing. That would be open and clear communication. Whereas if you just brush it on the table, try to see it on the bright side, never talk to them about it, then that's avoiding conflict. Okay, so really important one. I still am guilty of that in my life every single day. Sometimes it's easier just to let it go than to share with somebody what you're feeling and what's going on. But The idea of this one is we're talking about emotional intelligence and being really comfortable sharing our emotions, our thoughts, and our feelings to have open, clear communication. That is definitely a step in the right direction. And finally, defending. So this would probably come up when you're maybe sharing your feelings or your thoughts or your emotions with somebody, and they come back and defend themselves. Are you suggesting that I should have done something different? And then they get defensive, right? And so again, we covered a lot of these strategies in the previous video because we talked about the idea of sharing just feelings and thoughts and emotions versus trying to state the facts of something's happening or trying to share your story as a fact. And so chances are, if somebody's being defensive, maybe you need to circle back and get a little bit more clear on the fact that you're just sharing your emotions and your feelings and that you're not blaming anybody or pointing the finger in any direction. But that would be another one as well of distracted listening, because clearly they're just getting upset and angry. They're not listening to what you have to say. And if you did the same to somebody else, that would be another perfect example. So there's your 4 main types of listening filters or distracted listening. And then I want to share with you guys as well. I'm going to jump over to another book here. This one's motivational interviewing, but just talking about 4 ways of getting really clear, reflective listening back to the person that you're trying to listen to. And these come down to OARS, O-A-R-N-S. And so open-ended questions is the first one. I think this one's pretty obvious. A lot of us have seen this. If it's like, somebody shares something with you like, I had a really terrible day today. And you say, was that a really terrible day? Yes or no, right? You don't really get anywhere. And where if you say, tell me more about that. How was your day? Then all of a sudden, boom, the story starts, right? The fire, you go over the waterfall and all the emotions start coming out. And that's a good skill for listening, right? You want to be able to get people to share with you in their words what it is they're experiencing, what it is they're feeling. And so jumping in and getting that open-ended question really is a good conversation starter. And the next one is affirmation. And so just affirming that whatever somebody is sharing with you, right? Because a lot of times people are always trying to do the best thing they can. So, if it doesn't work out necessarily that they didn't, so it didn't work out for them, they tried to do something and it didn't work out the way they wanted to, then like, oh man, you're really brave for trying to do that. Good for you. And so just that affirmation, again, kind of gives them gratification. It kind of affirms that you're listening to what they're saying. They feel strongly about the action they took. And so you're affirming that, hey, good for you. That's a brave, courageous thing to do. Good job. Okay, and next one is reflection. And so this one's really important too, because this reflection and the next one summarize, and they kind of go together. They're slightly different, but we'll jump into them both at the same time here just for brevity, because I'm kind of running out of time again, as crazy as that is. The 10 minutes goes by really fast when you start teaching and sharing. But okay, here we go. Reflecting and summarizing. This is really important because a lot of times people say something to you, and whether it's that they haven't thought it through all the way in their head yet, or you're just not quite clear on how they're saying it or what they're saying, if you choose to interpret what they say in a certain way and then base your response on that and they get defensive, chances are you misinterpret what they said. So before you jump in to correcting or giving advice or being defensive about what they said, you really got to make sure that you're reflecting back to them what you hear. So important. So for example, if somebody says, oh man, like that really bummed me out today. And you could be like, oh yeah, your boss is a jerk. Well, maybe they really like their jerk and say, no, actually, no, that's not really it. Like my boss is really cool. And so then what happened? What went wrong? More so or better to get to the bottom of it by reflecting or summarizing what you heard. So you can say, oh, I heard you're really upset today. Or it sounds like you're really upset at work today. Be like, yeah, I am really upset. And maybe they'll jump more into it. Or if that's the right emotion, then okay, tell me more about that. Why are you so upset for? What's going on, right? And so trying to make sure that you're understanding exactly what it is people are sharing with you, because as you've probably experienced now that you went and practiced it last week, it's a little difficult to verbalize what we're feeling, the thoughts, the emotions, the feelings that we're having. And so oftentimes we don't get it right the first time. And so if somebody takes that misrepresented or unclear statement and runs with it and tries to give you a solution, you're doubly frustrated because they're trying to solve your problem. And like I said, they didn't get to the bottom of it. They didn't listen enough to really understand what you're feeling. So if you're the listener on the other side of things, make sure you take the time to reflect back to people what they're saying or to summarize the statements they've made to make sure that they say, yeah, that's it. And then once you're clear on it, tell me more. What's going on? And dig into it and get really clear on what's happening. And so if you're trying to apply those practices to your listening skills when you're the one receiving communication about thoughts, feeling, emotions from others, hopefully that's really beneficial and really helpful for you. So there you go. You got the 4 listening filters, or the 4 signs that you're a distracted listener or that the other person listening to you is distracted, and then 4 strategies for being a more effective and clear listener, or a conscious listener, I guess, if we're going to base off title of our book. So thank you as always for your time. Trying to keep this under 10 minutes. Mission failed this week, but I had a ton of fun sharing with you guys. Listening is something that's so important for me. When I was a kid, I really had the hardest time having communication or conversations with people because I didn't really know what to say when somebody shared something that was upsetting for them. And so listening skills are so important for dealing with emotions that people are sharing, whether they're positive or negative, and so valuable for building strong, meaningful, healthy relationships, whether it's at home, whether it's at work, whether it's family. So important. So that's the end of week 4 of our emotional intelligence. But we're going to jump in and do a bonus one next week with gossip. And so tune in for that one. Really special. I bet you there's a lot of cool things about gossip that you didn't necessarily appreciate, and times that you are contributing to gossip in ways that you didn't appreciate. And that'll all happen next week. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a good week. And we'll see you guys back here next week, 2:00 Wednesday, for our next episode of Wired for Wellness. Have a good week.